Welcome to KR Films Entertainment Channel. Today I am going to explain a 2019 action war film called Uri, The Surgical Strike. The movie begins with the first chapter, The Seven Sisters. In 2015, in Manipur, India, a year before the Uri attack, a convoy of Indian Army troops travel on a forest path on a typical chilly day. Their vehicles suddenly stop as caltrops damage the tires. They then realize it's a trap and are caught in a deadly ambush, killing most of the soldiers. 10 days later, an operation unit led by Major Vihan is sent to infiltrate the location that led to the ambush of the Indian Army. Vihan plans a frontal assault, with Sartaj supporting fire in the back while Karan and a few soldiers approach to ambush the hideout. With the team in position, Vihan signals Sartaj and fires an RPG, which begins the firefight. The team clears the hideout and kills any terrorists they see. Soon after, Vihan spots their target, Kalang. The target throws a grenade at Vihan and engages in hand-to-hand combat. Vihan overpowers Kalang by grappling his neck, then finishes him by snapping it. After the encounter, the mission is a success, and they celebrate their victory with their battle cry. 3 days later, at a formal dinner, India's Prime Minister praises them for their bravery in stopping the plans of northeastern terrorism. Vihan then requests an early retirement from the army. He explains that his mother has been diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and he wants to spend time with her before she forgets him completely. Instead, the Prime Minister offers him a desk job at the government headquarters in New Delhi, allowing him to spend time with his mother while also serving the country. He also arranges for her mother to have a nurse, which Vihan accepts. In Chapter 2, An Unsettling Peace, the scene begins at Vihan's residence, where he spends time with his mother, Suhasini. A few days later, the National Security Council is alerted of a terrorist attack on a public bus that killed 4 civilians. Govind, the General of National Security, receives the report that the terrorists are from Lashkar's group and are hiding under a construction building. Meanwhile, at Palam Air Force Base, Vihan bids his goodbyes to Sartaj and Karan. He gives Karan a watch as a gift as they go to war. The threat of war escalates as terrorists infiltrate New Delhi. Sometime later, Vihan returns home and sees the door open. He checks his mother's room and finds her missing. Vihan is furious and runs to Neha's house for help but returns without finding their mother. Vihan blames Jasmine and wants her replaced because she failed to monitor his mother. Soon after, their mother arrives, accompanied by Jasmine's colleagues. In the third chapter, Bleed India with 1,000 Cuts. The scene begins at dawn. 4 terrorists disguised as soldiers sneak into the Uri base camp. They prepare themselves for the attack by leaking flammable gas. They then storm the sleeping camps, raining bullets on them. They blew up parts of the camp and nearly killed all the soldiers. The soldiers fight back and try to outnumber them. However, the enemies are skilled and are able to hold them for a while. Sartaj and Karan arrive and plan to flank the leader of the terrorists. They teamed up so Sartaj could cover for Karan while he snuck behind them. Karan dodges the terrorists' attacks but gets injured by the RPG. Even so, he keeps his resolve and sneaks up on the leader, then kills him with a headshot. After that, he picks up the rifle, which he later realizes was rigged with explosives, leading to his death. Following the tragedy, they were given funeral honors in recognition of their outstanding service. Suhani cries and shouts the battle cry of the soldiers, and everybody chants after her in response. Meanwhile, in the war room, the Prime Minister asks for the opinion of his council on how they should respond to the attack. The general suggests a surgical strike to infiltrate the Pakistan-occupied Kashmir area and destroy their hidden bases, including handlers and guides. After a few debates, the Prime Minister agrees to the strike and gives them 10 days to prepare. 2 days later, Sartaj visits Vihan and tells him that there is an operation in Kashmir. Assuming that it is a plan to retaliate against the terrorists. Sartaj returns Karan's watch and tells him that Karan once said he believed Vihan could save anyone. Later that day, Vihan visits his chief and requests to join the operation in Kashmir. The chief then tells him that the strike will commence in 8 days, so he has to gather soldiers and train them until the strike. After that, Vihan meets up with Lieutenant Grewal to brief him on the details of the operation. 7 days before the strike, the soldiers arrive at the Air Force, with Vihan acting as the major and Sartaj as the captain. Vihan tells them they will have special training within 7 days. His first order is to send a message to their family since they won't be able to communicate with them during the training. After that, he gives a speech about the soldiers who died at Uri headquarters, which raises their spirits, and they begin their training. In Chapter 4, entitled A New India, 1 day later. A New India, Vihan's former nurse, Jasmine, an agent of Govind, discovers the coordinates of the terrorists' launch pads, from which they can obtain satellite images. Jasmine reveals to Vihan that her given name is Pallavi. Jasmine then explains the details of the launch pad's location. Vihan asks her which launch pads were used for the Uri attack and who the handler is. Jasmine tells him about the launch pads, but she has no information on the handler. 5 days before the strike, Govind visits DRDO to look for a drone that could not be detected. The chief, Brian, insists that this kind of technology hasn't been invented yet. Then, Govind sees a drone shaped like an eagle being controlled by a young man, who is an intern named Ishan and takes an interest in it. He then instructs him to fly it and asks what it can do. Ishan tells him the distance in its night vision camera and calls it Garuda. After that, Govind orders Brian to make 4 Garudas within the day. Meanwhile, in the interrogation room, Vihan and Jasmine ask the 2 guides, who were arrested from Baramulla, for information. They also ask for the name of the person who planned the attack. Even after Jasmine tries to torture the old man by pulling his ear, he insists he doesn't know anything. After that, Vihan approaches the young man, telling him he has 2 options: talk to him or be shot. He then offers him a small bowl of hot soup and pours it into the man's face. The old man finally gives in, revealing the man behind the attack, Idris, and Jabba, the handler of the operation. 4 days before the strike, Jasmine receives information about the men who planned the attack and how they used the natural caves to infiltrate India. Govind tells them to use the Garuda for additional surveillance, and they must increase the artillery shelling at the border for distraction. Lastly, they should paint their helicopters with Pakistani Air Force markings. 2 days before the strike, the soldiers fly the Garuda, with Ishan controlling it and Jasmine guiding him. They plan to find the launchpad location to see what arsenal the terrorist will use. However, the Garuda got hit by a window, and Ishan struggles to get it to fly again. Shortly after, a young boy thought it was a toy, so he lifted it to look closer. Then, Ishan takes the opportunity for it to escape from the launchpad. The Garuda flies away and returns with the images from the operation. After that, the Prime Minister convenes a meeting with Jasmine 1 day before the operation to explain the surgical strike plan. General Grewal says 80 soldiers will be divided into 4 teams and will destroy 2 launch pads. Vihan's team will handle B1, where Idris and Jabba are. The launch pads are closer to the border, and the mission will take 50 minutes. The Prime Minister recalls Vihan's promise to safely bring back all of his soldiers. Vihan tells him that he and his soldiers would like to have a formal dinner with him after the mission. The surgical strike. In the final chapter, The Surgical Strike, Vihan gathers his soldiers and gives them an uplifting speech to finish their mission and avenge their fallen comrades. After that, he assigns them to teams. While the ministers handle the press and the public, Jasmine prepares at the headquarters for intel. Meanwhile, a Pakistani minister, Zamir, is suspicious of India's activity. However, he pays no attention to it and drinks with his 2 acquaintances, who are Indian spies. The spies then inject Zamir with a truth serum. With him intoxicated, they ask whether he knew about the surgical strike. He mumbles about the helicopters painted with Pakistani Air Force markings, and if any helicopters cross the border, they would be shot down by missiles immediately. The spies contact Govind and tell him Vihan's team must abort the mission. Govind immediately contacts Jasmine to tell Vihan to stop. Vihan then receives the call and informs Sirat of the situation. Fortunately, the helicopters turn around and manage not to cross the border. Because of the information, Govind tells Vihan's team that they cannot cross the border by air and must abort their mission. However, Vihan remembers the caves the terrorists used to go through in India. Instead of aborting the mission, he suggests to continue it by using the cave to enter the border. Moments later, the helicopter lands and Vihan's team heads to the caves with their night vision goggles. Govind then sends Ishan's Garuda to scout the caves for any terrorists nearby. Vihan communicates with Ishan for assistance, and they kill 2 terrorists who are guarding the cave. The team goes ahead and sees the B1 launch pad. They enter the area and go to their positions to prepare for an ambush. Shortly after, Vihan grabs a terrorist and kills him immediately. Then, a terrorist looks for him, and Vihan continues to fire. The whole terrorist group on the launch pad wakes up and starts a firefight. After the onslaught, Vihan's team successfully secures the launch pad and kills all terrorists. After that, Sartaj and the others begin planting explosives on the walls on their way to the B2 launch pad. While the team is opening the door, a terrorist notices them. Vihan kicks his comrade away just as the terrorist starts shooting at the door. The other terrorists immediately wake up upon hearing the shots, and the firefight begins. Sartaj activates the bombs, and they invade the building and the fight intensifies as Vihan joins them. The other soldiers stay outside to cover them in case any terrorists escape the area. In the middle of the firefight, Vihan finds Jabba. He chases him down and shoots him, but Jabba covers himself and starts shooting blindly. Vihan slowly approaches him as he waits for the right chance to attack. Jabba then runs out of ammo and attempts to escape from an open window. Luckily, Vihan reacts and shoots him in the back. He grabs his leg and asks him where Idris is. However, Jabba doesn't answer, so out of anger, Vihan slices his leg with a knife. Because of the excruciating pain, Jabba directs him to the camera. With his information, he takes a grenade and puts it in Jabba's clothes, killing him from the explosion. Meanwhile, Vihan rejoins Sartaj and informs him of Idris' whereabouts, which he believes is somewhere in the launch pad. Ishan then informs Vihan that the local police are coming in 2 minutes. Govind orders them to move out, but Vihan says that Idris must die first and destroys the last camera at a small shack. Idris immediately prepares his gun for Vihan's attack, but he gets surprised when Vihan breaks in through the window. Vihan disarms his weapon and fights Idris in hand-to-hand combat. For a while, the two relentlessly fight against each other, but Vihan's determination triumphs over Idris. He stabs him with a knife and shouts for his army's resolve, avenging his comrades and Karan. He quickly leaves the shack as the local police arrive. After that, Ishan gives him the coordinates of his team's whereabouts and escapes the area. Eventually, Vihan meets up with Sartaj and his team. However, they are followed by an assault helicopter which corners them as they hide behind huge rocks for cover. Sartaj then informs Vihan that they are running out of ammunition and might not hold much longer. Out of desperation, Vihan signals Sirat to keep the helicopter away from them by counterattacking the terrorist. The team uses this chance to escape and successfully cross the border, completing their mission with no record of casualties. Everybody celebrates their victory, and the team shouts their battle cry with high spirits. The movie ends with Vihan and the team landing on the base. He goes home to his mother, who still remembers him, and the team have a formal dinner with the Prime Minister, keeping his promise. Thanks for watching.